Welcome to Local Leverage, the podcast that helps you grow your business. I'm your host, Mark Hockridge, and today's guest is a trendsetter in the world of marketing and entrepreneurship. He's built the fastest growing marketing agency in the United States that's valued over $150 million. His company served over 5,000 brands, including global powerhouses like Red Bull, Casamigos, Barstool Sports, Funko, and more. His impact on the industry is truly undeniable. Please join me in welcoming the CEO of Hawke Media, Erik Huberman.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Erik, I'm super impressed by the growth that Hawke Media has had and now reaching 150 million valuation. Super impressive. What's one step a small business owner can take today to start scaling toward that level of success?
Keep your head down and keep pushing for a long time. And I would say, we have the venture fund too. We've invested in over 100 companies. And one of the pieces of advice I got very early into investing from an incredible investor is invest in the ambition of the founder. And that works as an investor, but it also works with what you're going to achieve. Like if you're comfortable at a certain level and it feels successful, you're not going to push for the next level. And so, because it's hard, growth is painful, it is risky. And so I think it all comes down to ambition. And that's not a jab. Like I'm not calling someone that builds a $20 million company unambitious. It's just, if you want to build a $1 billion company, you have to truly want to build a $1 billion company. And you have to change a lot of things. You got to do a lot of different things, and you're going to have to fight through a lot of things to get there. If you do, there's a lot of luck involved too. So
absolutely. And in terms of your investment thesis around that, I mean, there's that kind of concept of, do I bet on the horse? Do I bet on the jockey? It sounds like you're betting a bit on the jockey. Maybe is that how you're slanted?
We say you bet on the jockey, but you can't bet on a jockey riding a donkey. That's literally what we've said many times. So like we actually are it's both. It's, especially right now with like AI and how things are getting disrupted, you need a good horse too. You've got to be betting on something compelling that can adapt and take advantage of the current shifts, not be a victim of them. And so, but you need a founder that's going to lean into that and be able to keep up with how things are changing. I literally just hung up on back-to-back founder calls with companies we're looking to invest in. One of them was talking about already integrating into DeepSeek, the Chinese AI that launched yesterday.
Right.
So like I heard that and went, oh, like that was like such a green flag to me of like, you are literally the day after looking at, now that can come at a risk too, and someone's chasing shiny objects, but there's a part right now where you really got to be on top of everything.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's interesting. I've been trying to encourage our team and really trying to instill a culture around the use of AI. And it's just going so quickly, and there's so much opportunity. And to your point, there's also potential risks within that. Like in DeepSeek, I saw the terms of use basically gives them rights to both the questions and the answers, and so we have to navigate this cautiously.
Exactly.
And I'm seeing AI transform marketing in particular, but I think many small businesses that I deal with seem to be overwhelmed by it. Like, what's one simple way that a small business can start incorporating AI into their marketing strategy today?
Yeah, it's easy to get overwhelmed by anything if you're trying to boil the ocean. Like, just take one thing at a time. Download ChatGPT and have it start asking it questions and using it instead of search. Like, just implementing it in small pieces you'll start to learn, but becoming native with it is worth it. And that's what I think you need to remind yourself of. The same way the internet came out, you didn't need to have a website 6 months after the internet was launched. Like, that wasn't important. If you did, you were kind of ahead of people, but like, let's be real. Any internet business that launched in the 90s, most of them are gone. So like, it's not like that's going to be the reason you're successful or you fail, is being ahead of it that much. But I think that's the best metaphor, because now if you don't have a website, you're like, it's kind of a joke. Like, really, you have a business without a website? Like, I'm sure you can function without one, but it seems pretty dumb not to leverage that tool. Same way I would say, we're already at a point with ChatGPT and with AI in general that it's kind of ridiculous not to leverage it in some way. But then I know people that are power users that are developing personas, galore, and all sorts of different accounts for different situations. I just talked to a guy that like literally does his financial review in ChatGPT every week and uploads his P&L. And to me, it's, you can do that. It's impressive, but that's a lot of time invested in that versus something else too. So it's not necessarily a necessity, but the guy's probably getting a lot of insight on his finances that he might not have otherwise had. And now you've got this really fast thinking AI tool that thinks logically, telling you all the things you need to be looking out for, watching for trends. Like, there's something really compelling there that I'm actually actively looking into too. And then there's the other part of AI. It's not just leveraging these LLMs. We built our own system that we took almost a decade to build that's digesting like 6,000 companies' marketing, media, and revenue data in real time that we're able to train against an individual company's marketing performance and see exactly what's working and not. So it's how do you make this an advantage for yourself? And like we started building that when we were 20 people. It's not like you need to be a big company to start figuring out what is your unique angle here that can help your business be a better business.
Yeah, so that's a great point. And so what do you see as like one way that AI can be deployed by small businesses to help them compete with some of the larger brands?
It depends on the business, honestly. Like small business, it really depends on what your value proposition is. I just look at it as like, what are the rudimentary logic-based tasks that are being done in my company and how much of it can be automated by AI? Start there. And then same thing with anything you would hire an intern to do, AI can do. We always talk about like AI is an army of 17-year-old interns, and it's growing up quick. Maybe it's at 22 now. You're getting decent thought out of it. So it's like, well, and that's what I frankly like where I see, the quick shift happening, and you're already hearing about it. These like young, just out of college kids, you don't need that level, like the analysts and investment banks, et cetera. Like AI can do all those jobs now, which sucks because then it doesn't give those college grads the opportunity to learn and ramp up so that then they can manage it. I think that's going to be one of the consequences of this right now. But it also is the benefit to a small business that goes, oh, I don't need to hire all these minimum wage or $25 an hour people. That all can be done by AI. All I need is really high caliber people and AI, and I can get a lot done, especially if it's any type of white collar job or white collar business. Blue collar, you're going to still have some trouble there unless you're dealing with robotics. But that's something I'm hearing a lot. A lot of the tech companies we work with are, instead of hiring a bunch of developers, are hiring about 10% of the developers that are really high caliber and having them leverage AI.
Yeah, absolutely. We're starting to explore things like Cursor and things like that just help in the actual coding effort too. And it's not maybe full replacement for the person, but man, if you can get more cycles and do simplification and regression.
Well, great example. There was a tool I used forever called Captio that like you basically open up an app on your phone and type in whatever you want and then hit send and it goes to your email box. So why I used that was when I was at conferences or I'm meeting people, I just hand it to them and go, hey, throw in your email, hit send. It goes to my email box and I have a reminder to just shoot them an email. And it's a really easy way for me to remember to reach out to people, et cetera. Captio got kicked off the App Store. They stopped supporting it. And so I went to my CTO and said, hey, can you build this? And he comes back to me and goes, it'll be about 2 weeks, probably cost us about 10 grand. I'm like, it's not really worth it. And then 2 hours later, he goes, I forgot about AI. It's done.
Isn't that great? Yeah.
So like in a very real example, 2 hours of my CTO's time is not $10,000. And we had it versus, again, what should have probably cost 10 grand. And that was the estimate. So it was probably going to be 20. So save 20 grand and a lot of headache and have it done. And it works. Hawke, by the way, it's free if anyone wants to use it.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, and you built Hawke AI, right? It's your AI marketing tools. Maybe it's more of a general question, but how do you suggest people start learning and experimenting with AI? I mean, how do you kind of get into it and then also to indoctrinate the rest of your team with that?
Yeah, I think the first step is just the basics. Like I think the AI is now becoming it's like, how do you start working with the internet?
Right.
Is the same thing. It's like, if someone asked me that, I'd be like, I don't know, start browsing, go buy something on the internet. Like for me, it's like start with ChatGPT and, using the app or using the website instead of Google search, or use Gemini and start understanding how it displays differently and what it can do. And then, again, when you're sitting there and you're dealing with a mundane task you have to do a bunch of, go like, can I do this with AI? See what happens. Start playing with, things that it could take off your plate. It's going to take a couple, I'm not going to say risks, but you're probably going to waste a little time trying to figure out what it can do and what it can't. But in the long run or even the medium run, you're going to end up with a very valuable little assistant is how I would look at it.
Yeah.
And like I'm now working with my assistant on taking AI, building my persona, starting to run things through there and looking at all the things I'm doing all day and figuring out where in my day AI could plug in and help me do things. Whether it's, getting through my emails quicker, looking at the financials quicker, like things like that, that it's like, how can I get all this stuff reported to me in a much more concise way so I can just bite size it and spot trends and have it be a co-pilot in that sense, and a strategic co-pilot. And we're just starting to build that out too.
One of my counterparts, another CEO of another SaaS company, was telling me that he has encouraged everybody just to have a little post-it note on their display that says, how can I use AI to solve this current issue faster? And it's like a constant reminder, like, hey, exactly. Be curious and dig in.
And that's it. I mean, and again, this AI, this all-in bucket of AI is a little bit of a risk. It's just like it always was with software. Is there software that can make this easier? Are there machine learned tools, et cetera? It accelerated pretty fast, but it's the same thing. You know, as we're sitting here on Riverside versus me or you flying to each other and sitting down and recording on mics in person on a, mixing with a mix panel and all those things, like you don't need any of that anymore because of technology. And this is just another step in technology that it's like, okay, well, what does this make possible?
Yeah.
And how do I train? Like, that's the one thing I've seen the mistake with AI is, how do I do the same thing but with AI versus what can I do differently because of AI? So instead of like, and I see that a lot, like I'm trying to think of a good example. I'm sending 300 emails out, can I have to all these people, can I have AI just send them out for me, as opposed to, I'm staying in contact with these 300 people. What can AI do to make that contact better? Like, can I now be more personalized? Can I not send it out blanket every 3 months, but do it at a time when there's something relevant going on in the person's life? Can I I'm speaking off the cuff here, but can I have AI monitor my contacts LinkedIn, and when they make an announcement, send them an email and say, hey, congratulations, by the way, what do you think of this? Or whatever that is that I don't even have to do anymore because AI can do that all for me. These are things that I think are fun to think through and can be a distraction from what's actually important in your business, so be careful there too.
Yeah, for sure. It can be a time suck. I think I lost all of last weekend geeking out on it.
Yeah.
Let me switch gears a little bit into brands. I mean, you've had opportunity to work with some massive brands like Red Bull and Barstool Sports, and I often see for small businesses, especially the ones that we serve, which are kind of real estate-centric small businesses, oftentimes their branding and even their lead generation approach really sucks. And I'm curious, do you have a tip or two about what a small business can steal from giants in terms of branding or their approach so that they can stand out in their local markets?
Yeah, consistency is brand. So just being consistent, like, it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be beautiful. It just needs to be consistent, because if you aren't consistent, then nobody knows what you stand for. So, just do it. Nike, been around forever. Always Coca-Cola. Like, these taglines, I think people fall into this weird thing with their own business where they've said it for so long, they think they've been redundant too long, that they get rid of their tagline, they get rid of, they rebrand too many times, et cetera. And it's like, it takes forever. Like, we're a very aggressive marketing agency as far as our own marketing. We drink our own punch. We've worked with over 5,000 companies. We've, talked to probably 50,000 plus. And we still, people go, wait, who are you? Like, I would be surprised if any of your guests have ever heard of us. And we work in the real estate space. In fact, I have a real estate family office too, but we've worked with some of the biggest real estate companies in the country. And I bet most of the real estate industry has no idea who we are. And reminding yourself of that with your customer base is like, most people have no idea who you are. Makes it, when you remember that, the stuff that's working, stop changing it just because you think it's stale, because it's the consistency that actually really nails that. And I think big brands generally understand that, because when you have a big brand, you value that brand. You know that changing that brand leaves a lot of loss. Now, there's CMOs at a lot of these companies, like what Jaguar just did. Like, got rid of the Jaguar, the actual Jaguar. It's like, that had so much backlash, and I don't know that was a good decision. We'll all see over time what happens, but those are things that I think it's busy work versus like, was that really what Jaguar needed to do, was change the font and get rid of the Jaguar? Is that really going to sell more cars? And I think a lot of marketers forget what their real job is in that sense. And it's like, don't get stuck on that stuff. And then that goes to the lead gen side. Like, you need to drive revenue. With lead gen, I've just never thought about lead gen. Like, I don't think about my market. Like, we have lead gen, just to be clear. Like, we generate tons of leads, but I've never looked at it as lead gen, because I think that's the problem, is when you look at it as lead gen, the goal are leads. My goal is revenue. My goal is driving business. And so even if my cost per lead is through the roof, but they're all converting, it's like you got to think about the end goal, because I think a lot of companies get stuck buying leads and buying lists and doing these things that don't produce. And you really need to focus on like, what is the best things I can do that drive sales, that drive business, that drive revenue, and what is my CAC to LTV, not my cost to acquire a customer to my lifetime value of a customer, not what is my cost per lead, with the averages of those closing, because that's sometimes a little too generic and misleading, where it's like, yeah, sure, your cost per lead to your, which turns into a CAC, which creates a CAC to LTV ratio, is working, but maybe 10% of those leads are driving 90% of the revenue, and those leads came from this task. The other 90% came from your your affiliate marketing that's actually not getting you any closes. So it's really figuring out where those are coming from, what's driving revenue, what channels, and having a little bit of a deeper look.
I also think at least for the small business community, like the CAC payback, or cost per acquisition payback period, is super critical, right? I mean, you can effectively grow yourself out of business if you don't have the funding, right? If that cash to cash cycle time's too long,
The cash to cash, that's totally important, and I think most people miss that. It's a great point, because I think a lot of marketers miss that factor, that there is a payback period. On top of that, there's a purchase cycle. From the time they see you to the time they buy usually takes a period, and you have to be very clear on that too, because these are all working capital constraints. You may have great CAC to LTV, but exactly what you just said, from the time to close could be a problem, and the payback period after that close could be a problem.
Yeah. But I was thinking about the brand in the Jaguar thing. I don't know if you saw, like last week or week before, Walmart modified their logo, and it was like, it's almost indistinguishable.
I was gonna say that felt like something straight out of a comedy. Like, we have redeveloped our logo.
It's the same thing.
Yeah. That's called the Emperor's New Clothes. Like, that is what that looks like. But here we are. And the CMO of Walmart's brilliant. I actually know the guy, but it's I'm not always clear on those. And I think a slight refresh, like what they did, probably makes sense, because there's probably something in terms of trends that identifies, like, I forgot exactly how they changed it, but it's probably more in line with what people are looking for today. But it didn't lose their existing brand equity. And so those incremental, like, you look at almost any 50-year-old, 100-year-old brand, they've changed their logo every 5-10 years. I think the issue there is the amount of PR it got was probably unnecessary and probably didn't really help. It's like, why are we talking about this?
Well, I mean, aside from the logos, I mean, what's your thought around modifying or continuing to iterate on the key messaging and positioning?
Yeah, I think if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I think if the world has changed and your messaging hasn't kept up, that's one thing. But again, like Nike, just do it. I don't know if there's going to be a point where unless people can't do things anymore, and then sure, that won't work. But it's just, to me, the repetitive nature of that is a powerful tool in marketing. It's something used with the best politicians. And I don't mean best politicians from agreeing with their agendas, but actually like watching who wins politics. It's, whether it's Make America Great Again or Hope, sticking to a message that really resonates and just saying it over and over and over and over again. Bring people psychologically will come around, even if they resist it at first, will start to believe it just because it's repetitive. And so sticking to a tagline really helps.
I mean, exactly. You tease that out. I mean, I think that so much of it is about the building of trust through repetition, right, and that consistent message, and just getting hammered with that over and over and over. You look at all of our presidents, and they've done that. Well, in some cases, really masterfully. In other cases, not so well. But that builds that and continues to build that trust. For small businesses that are trying to, slog it out with some of the bigger organizations, are there ways to play a different game and win with kind of a local presence and local branding that large companies can't achieve?
Yeah, I mean, that's more just, one-on-one personal relationships and things like that. Like, it's that you can't have that personal connection as easily as a big brand as you can as a small one. And so, whether it's in-person events and, that sort of hand-to-hand combat as far as building your brand, that's going to go a long way versus the big guys that just can't do that. And, people have relationships with people, and when you're a small organization, those people are really impactful. versus when you're a big one, you might have sellers or you might have the CEO out and speaking and all those kind of things, and they can reach a lot of people, but they're not going to have the same level of relationship, because at scale you have to have more relationships, which means you can't have as deep a relationship.
I'm curious about, you have a kind of a fractional or outsourced CMO model in Hawke Media, and I'm curious, how do you help customers identify when the right time to replace themselves is, or when the right time to use kind of a fractional or outsourced resource versus trying to do it themselves?
Well, so it depends on your skill set. Everyone's different. If you're a founder that's really marketing forward and understands everything about marketing, then yeah, you should focus on that and outsource the other things. Like, to me, as a CEO and a founder, you should continue to double down more and more on what you're best at and what you can do that no one else can, and bring on other people that are better than you on the other things. And to me, also, bringing in a CMO to a small or medium business, you're going to overpay the individual and not have the resources for them to leverage. So that was, the model for us was always, get the top level experts, but part-time, so that you can actually build out all the expertise you need. But frankly, you don't need these people full-time. And the thesis came from my last company when I had a full-time, I think it was like 12-person marketing team, and I needed them all about half the time, not even, but I needed all those skill sets. But finding an agency that I could get that kind of focus and get those kind of people didn't exist. And so I thought about it while building my activewear brand. And then when I sold that, honestly, it wasn't a conscious, like, oh, now it's time to build that company. I was advising for some brands, and then just hired a few people to help those brands and kind of built out the team the way I built it at my own company, because it worked. But then I realized I'd built what I wish existed with my last company, where it's like, yeah, now I can save a good amount of the money I was spending. Like, my, payroll on my marketing team was way too high for the size of the company, but it worked, and we built a great company and sold it. But we didn't need all those people that amount of time. It was crazy. I was looking at, like, my media buyer that would come in and adjust ads for a couple hours a day and then kind of screw around, because frankly, we didn't have any more budgets to go spend on more stuff. So they're like, oh, I have other ideas. We're like, great, but those ones are working. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Like, I don't need you to pull another report. We got it. It's good. I don't know, go to the gym or something, like go hang out. But I wasn't going to fire that person, because again, the actual financial performance was there. Yeah, and we need that capability. So that was really what became Hawke Media, was finding a way to get a group of marketers that are the best at what they do, but keeping it easy to work with. So it created this opportunity for all these small and medium businesses to have an incredible marketing team without trying to build it. And that wasn't the only challenge, the fractional nature. It was also like, if you're not the sexiest startup or this high-flying brand or a big company, good luck, attracting really, really solid marketing talent. Like, marketers want the hype company that's on a rocket ship. And if you're not that, it's really hard to attract. And then that ends up being a self-fulfilling prophecy, because if you're already not the sexy company that's hard to market, well, now you can't even get a good marketer. Like, you end up being miserable in that sense too.
That's a great point. Do you see that for your clients, and this serves as kind of a stepping stone then, where at some point, based upon their growth, they may then go from fractional to full-time, and it's just kind of a process?
Yeah, and the fractional CMO part is just a piece of what we do. They definitely, like, they'll use us for that, and then a lot of times hire someone in-house to bring on, that is a director of marketing or a VP of marketing or a CMO, and they'll bring it in, or they'll keep us on and have that person be an advisor to their internal person. But we do soup to nuts marketing here too. So, like, we're the full team, and so it's what we see in the best situations is it's kind of a play. There's a little bit of a play back and forth where it's like, okay, we're going to do this stuff ourselves, but you're going to handle this. Now we're going to do this, but you're going to do this, and we're constantly shifting, not constantly, but we're shifting things along with the growth of their company and their ability to find certain talent that we're plugging in when they can't. And we're also plugging in with certain things that shouldn't be in-house. Like, I don't believe that advertising and media buying should be in-house 99.9% of the time. Once in a very long while, you get some crazy unicorn advertiser that you can have, but that is so rare, and that person is so expensive if they're any good. You're better off hiring a company like ours that has tons of visibility into what's working, what's not across the board, systems like Hawke AI and all the other platforms, Play, et cetera, that we use, that you want to use all of those. They're going to cost you way more than we cost just as a service to plug in all those softwares. Like, the benefits of doing, like, your advertising and media buying in-house, it's why almost every Fortune 2000 uses agencies. There's just a lot of benefits to it. But that's the problem I see both ways. I also have a problem with people that say, I'm going to outsource everything. Like, none of this is binary. You should be making pragmatic individual decisions on what makes sense to keep in-house and what makes sense to outsource. And that, framework changes as the company changes.
I'm a big believer that if it becomes core to the business and central, then maybe that is the point that we need to bring that in-house and have it dedicated. But things are changing and evolving in marketing strategies all the time, and having that one fixed resource may not be the most advantageous. I'm curious is on that front. Is there a trend that every business owner should be paying attention to in this 2025 to stay relevant?
I'm paying attention to TikTok. It's a really great marketing platform, but we'll see what happens in the next 70 days or whatever it is now. And AI, again, is going to create a lot of efficiency. The interesting thing about these new tools and innovations that have always come up is it's an equal playing field. So as long as you leverage this stuff better than the person next to you and your competitor, you win. So the idea that you have to be perfect at everything is a fallacy. The idea that you have to be better than other people, that's true. So, that's where I have a lot of confidence in this space, is I'm very confident in myself and my team's ability to adapt and change and figure out how to make things work where they are, versus the other people out there that are very much stuck in their ways and doing the same thing they did 20 years ago. And so we've made a very innovative culture here, especially with the investment side and the tech side that we do, that just has forced a culture of adapting new things, checking out new platforms, and really staying on top of it. And so I would say just doing that in general, the speed of innovation continues to accelerate. And so just getting used to being uncomfortable and getting used to having to step out of your comfort zone, and stability is not really a thing. I think it's driving a lot of people nuts, but it's just a reality of our society now.
Yeah. I feel like what you said there is really empowering. Like, you don't have to be the best. You just have to be, as good or better than your competition.
Yeah, it's the old joke. A bear is charging at two guys, and one guy bends down to tie his shoes. The other guy goes, "You can't outrun a bear." He's like, "I don't have to outrun a bear. I have to outrun you." Like, same thing. That's think of AI as the bear. Think of tech as the bear. Innovation as the bear. I don't have to outrun the bear. I just have to outrun the guy next to me.
Right. How large is your team now?
About 300.
So as you've grown, what are the challenges that you've seen, and what are the inflection points, and how did you adjust as a leader to make sure that you're managing and leading most effectively?
Every time you double, the sort of culture changes, the company changes, the abilities of your leadership changes. Like, and because we've grown fast over the years, it's been constant change. So I would say, and there's also cultural dynamics in society. There's, shifts that we're all aware of during COVID, post-COVID, now. Like, you just have to kind of stay on top of, like, the pulse of the world, pulse of society, pulse of your employees. But at the end of the day, I've always believed, and I think there's a lot of consensus around this, that culture trickles down. It comes from leadership, and that's what there's a lot of different cliches around that. Like, what is it? What you manage is what you get. What you accept
also what you
versus
get, yeah.
what you there's all sorts of things like that. I also realized after, like, there was a period where I really wanted to make everyone happy at the company, and it was like focused, and this is years ago now, but focused on, like, every complaint we got, we took seriously, and we tried to, like, fix everything for everyone and please everyone. And you start to realize, like, we then were turning into a company that I didn't even want to be a part of, nor did any of our top performers, because we're frankly managing to the lowest common denominator that all they did is complain. And so I went the opposite. I kind of swung back the other way and went, this is who we are. If you don't like it, you can leave. And not in a shitty way. I'm totally happy if I have never been offended by someone leaving Hawke Media because it's not the right place for them. And I changed our tune to that, and we ended up in a much better place culturally when we were able to be like, this is who we are. It's up to you whether this is what you want to be a part of. And so really defining that from the top and managing to that, whatever that might be for you. I always go back to companies fail for two reasons. That's it. Two reasons. Number one, they get underwater financially, whether it's you took on too much debt, you raised too much money and can never pay back your investors, you get underwater financially, you take on a bunch of liabilities and you can't afford them. Like, that's number one. The only other reason companies fail, leadership burns out and quits. That's it. I've really spent a lot of time trying to find a third reason, and I can't find it. So if those are the two things, then to me, the way I survive, which survival and longevity in a business is a great way to be successful, is don't get underwater financially, manage my finances, don't take on a bunch of debt and do anything too crazy. And the other piece is don't burn out. Make this something that I want to be a part of, that I want to maintain, and and also know that I own my destiny. Like nobody forced me to start this company. Nobody forces me to run this company. And so knowing that this is an option and this is something that I chose to do, now how do I make this something that I wake up every morning excited to do? And what are the things that are detracting from that? And how do I fix those things? That is a constant focus of mine. And I'm not always perfect at it, but it's something that I really fight for, which continues to mean that I have something that I want to be a part of. And that's been a really big learning. We just turned 11 years old, and over the past 11 years, that is probably the thing that has let us survive, is that when I started finding myself not enjoying it, which we all go through cycles, forcing myself to be the one to fix it and being like, oh, this sucks, this sucks. I can sit here and complain, or I can do something about it. And changing the things I can control and identifying those things. And it's not easy. I'm saying it's a lot easier said than done, but I think as an owner, that is your job and your priority. And then the last piece of it is, I don't know what the average income for an entrepreneur is. I don't think it's much different than the average income in the US, but the ability to earn is much higher. And so I've always looked at this as, I'm going to work like most won't so I can live like most can. So when I'm going through the ringer and when I'm dealing with shit that I really don't want to and I'm stressed out, a good example is I spent this weekend on my 9th annual trip to a heli snowboarding with 48 other entrepreneurs, or 47, I was 48th, that I've been doing this again for 9 years. And I'm standing on top of a mountain in eastern British Columbia that I got to by a helicopter. And I'm like, yeah, this is fucking cool. And, there were fires to put out, and I had to work while I was up there, and I had to get back on Monday, and I landed at 10 a.m. for a full slew of things I had to deal with. But I got to go do that. And that reminder is so empowering in the sense of when you're facing, another, Elon Musk said that entrepreneurship is chewing glass while staring into the abyss. Right. That's a little dramatic. I don't think it's that bad, but there's times when you're just like, this sucks. It is hard. You're dealing with way bigger problems than most people deal with. And because of that, reminding yourself to why you do it, I think is really important.
Take me back to, as you talked about making this really intentional shift with culture and being unapologetic about it, what did that look like? Did you just take some soul-searching time for yourself and then come out and say, here's what it is, and then how did you articulate now this new culture and vision to the company?
I don't know if I was perfect at that, but I honestly just stopped placating and started, and there were a couple triggers for that. It was really in 2020, we ended up with a very, lack of a better word, woke culture. We supported BLM and donated it and talked about it. And I felt like our Instagram became a spokesperson for the next, cause in society. So it was like Stop Asian Hate and BLM, and there were several others. And then I'm Jewish. And there was a period in 2020, this is before all this recent Palestine-Israel stuff, but there was a period where there were Palestinian supporters running around LA and New York, picking up random Jews off the sidewalk that were wearing yarmulkes or whatever and beating them up. And what I found was it wasn't on the news. I knew about it because I had friends. I'm in LA and I heard about it from friends in New York, et cetera, and I saw it in their social medias, but it wasn't reported on the news. And when I brought it up to my team, like, hey, we got to make an announcement about this, I was met with, well, it's a little controversial. I'm like, that Jewish guy has nothing to do with what's going on in Israel. That guy's maybe never been to Israel. Like, what are you talking about that's controversial? This is not okay. And when I saw that, I was like, this is all performative. This is not because we actually care about people and what sort. This is all people falling into the next outrage culture, people bored in COVID and at home and they wanted to be angry about something. Like, I'm not saying all of it, the whole cause was wrong. I'm just watching what, all these companies making announcements. It's kind of like, the companies that changed their logo to a pride flag during June, where it's like, and what else have you done for the gay community?
Like, what did you do the other 364 days?
And so when I started to see that, that was the first step of we're not doing this anymore. We'll support causes. We've always stood really behind education as the cause we want to support. I'm like, we'll keep doing that. We'll do pro bono work for really cool causes too, but I'm not going to be the spokesperson for the cause of the day. This is dumb. And that started to alienate some of the people that have been really caught up, where it's all they cared about was, those things. And I was like, okay, we're done with that. If this isn't the place for you, my assistant at the time, we parted ways in a very amicable way, and she went to get her master's in DEI. And I was like, she didn't want to be in a marketing agency. She wanted to go explore DEI. And I'm like, you should do that. That's what you want to do. It was super amicable, but like, I basically just had those direct conversations of like, this isn't the place. And if that's what your calling is, and this is what you want to be, we're here to market brands. That is what we do here. And that is what we're focusing on. And I saw, like, at the time, I think the Coinbase CEO made a speech like this. The Sweetgreen CEO made a speech like this. And not to put myself in that category, but when I saw that, it resonated too. Like, it was the same kind of timing that I went, yeah, we're not playing this either. And I understand people, there was a lot of talk about companies need to stand for something. And I'm like, we do. We stand for being the best at what we do in marketing and being really easy to work with. That's what we stand for. We're here to build brands. We're here to grow companies. That's what we stand for. Politically, I'm open to all sides because I'm pretty centrist myself. So,
was the team pretty receptive to, when you came and said, okay, like, hey, here's reset?
It was perfect because we frankly had a small group of very vocal people that were causing everyone else to not really, like, they were causing problems with everyone else. Most people were here because they wanted to do marketing and grow brands, and like, that's why they signed up. And they're like, what are we doing now? Why are we focused on this? And there were, I think most people like myself were supportive, but at some point you start to go, aren't we here to market companies? Like, what are we talking about? And so I think there were a handful of people that thankfully self-selected out. And then most people, we saw the high performers feel like they could perform. And that was, I think, the problem is, like, we started to incentivize and promote this thing that didn't actually drive the company's success or our client's success. And when we got back to focusing on what's important, it invigorated the people that created that, the people that were the performers in that situation. And so that was the reward I needed, because up until then, I had, again, always placated to the vocal minority and the people that were complaining or saying we needed to do something. And I cut off a lot of, like, we had an anonymous complaint box that was just useless because people would complain and then we didn't even know how to address it. Because sometimes the complaints were just miscommunications. Like, no, that's not actually what we're asking you to do, but I didn't even know who to respond to. So then we get on our all hands meetings and we're addressing these complaints where 99% of the staff already knew the answer. And they're like, what are you talking about? Why are we? And so then you feed, there's that whole wolf thing too, where it's like whatever you feed is what grows. And we were feeding complainers, so our complainers were growing. And it's like, let's feed the performers. Let's celebrate the wins. Let's talk about positive things. And go figure, that actually created a positive environment. So goes back to what do you want to run? I wanted to run a fun, positive, exciting, aggressive company. And if that wasn't exciting to you and that's not what you'd be a part of, please, like, we're happy to help you find another job.
Yeah. But I think that's the magic, at least in my experience. Like, when you can establish that clarity and people internalize it, and to your point, some are going to self-select out. That's a fantastic thing, though, right? When now you can get momentum around the core beliefs and the mission that you've established and let everything else kind of fall to the wayside, like, that's a force multiplier. I just want to jump back to kind of that chewing glass and staring into the abyss. Certainly, just owning a business or being an entrepreneur is tough, but a scaling business often comes with a whole different set of sacrifices and a learning curve. What kind of advice would you have for entrepreneurs to kind of prepare for a scale and how to manage that transition, those inflection points you talked about?
Yeah, don't be over proactive. I think that's one mistake people made with scale. They think that, we're definitely going to double next year, so I'm going to build a team and an infrastructure for that double, and then it doesn't happen and you're underwater. I've seen that mistake happen too many times. So I think being very quickly reactive has been where I've been the most successful, where it's like, this is happening, make the moves you need to support it now. But so staying on top of your numbers, understanding your projections, understanding your pipeline, understanding what's coming, so that right when it hits, you're ready, and being ahead of it, but not too far ahead of it that it's costing you, like, the assumption of, like, we should ramp up the team for when we grow.
Right.
No.
Right.
I don't agree with that. I'm sure some people it's worked for, especially if you're funded, but this is bootstrap, by the way. We've never raised money for Hawke Media. So
good for you.
I've always built it on its own cash, and it's caused a lot of, it causes stress, but it also forces a much better behavioral pattern in terms of, we're not hiring today because we don't have that business yet. Oh, you think we'll have it next month? Well, let's see. And sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. When it happens, have a pipeline, have talked to people and be like, hey, we should be having an influx and we're going to need someone here. We'd love you to start in the next month, but I can't promise you that. So those kind of conversations, like, be comfortable being uncomfortable in that sense. And I think that is the way to prep to scale, is understand what the landscape will look like if it works out, and get ready for that and know what those pieces are. So it's more of just a, pressing the button, like, okay, it's time to implement X, it's time to do Y, versus trying to figure out as you're growing,
right.
Like, what does that plan look like? If you do double your business next year, what does your staff look like? What would make sense there? And again, you can shift this, but at least have a framework that you think you're working within, that will help you not have to like figure it out, as you're going. But then again, if you think your staff needs to look like this next year, if you double, don't hire them now and then hope you double and hire them along the way kind of thing.
Absolutely. Is there a fear that you had during your scaling that you look back on and think, boy, that was irrational?
I mean, it's there, yeah. I would say the biggest time, I didn't feel much fear from most of the business. I was just like, I actually had more of an attitude of like, if it goes to zero, I'll be fucking fine. Like, it was just like, we're going for it. Like, I'm just going to keep pushing. But once it got big enough that I like felt like I had something to lose, the irrational fear of when you had like a bad month or a downturn or something miss, that it was the start of a spiral. And that is the irrational thing that I still have to remind myself sometimes when I get like a bad piece of news that is the news. The news doesn't get worse than that. That's what happened. You'll figure it out. This is what it looks like. It's not like that's the start of 15 other things that are going to hit you right now that are going to just end your entire career. Because I think we all, if you've been in business long enough, you've been punched in the face a lot and you're kind of waiting for the next punch. And so when you get hit, and you're waiting for the next punch, you get hit a few times, and it can throw you off. But once you've been through it a few times, and you've been through what you think is going to be an unmitigated disaster, and you might lose your business, and then you don't, that also makes you more sturdy on the next one. You're like, it's fine. You do this. You start to learn through experience that, God, like we had our first down year in 22. That was year 9. And then 23 was a down year. 24, we caught right back up and beat our past those 2 years. So and it was a lot to do with, there was 2 things. We cut a bunch of unprofitable revenue and got rid of that. And the market was tough. The interest rates went up, everything slowed down a little bit. And so I had never experienced that. And again, when you start seeing it decline, your view goes to like, well, does this go to zero? Like, I've never declined before. When does it stop declining? Like, you draw a trend map. Like, I've been drawing a trend this way the entire time. What happens when the trend starts going this way? Does it stop? And then again, you work your ass off. You figure out how to, make things happen, and it does stop, and it does start going the other way. And once you learn that, once you have that experience, I think the next time and it hasn't happened yet, thankfully, but the next time we end up experiencing some sort of decline, gave me solace that Google and Facebook also had revenue decline in that period. But when you see that, you're like, oh yeah, this is what we have to do. This is how we fix this, and this is part of business. And these are all. But the first time you get a lawsuit, you're like, oh, the world's gonna fucking end. Right. How am I gonna ever afford this? I'm gonna lose everything. I've heard about these lawsuits. You're gonna spend 8 years fighting with a lawyer and spend millions of dollars. And then nothing happens, and it's totally fine. And then the next one, and then you get to the point where it's like, oh, this is part of doing business, and it sucks that we live in a litigious society. But yeah, back to the point. You go through this, it builds resilience, and over time, you just get more level-headed about all this stuff. And going back to the point, it still is annoying. So you got to find the other ways you enjoy the business to make it worth it. If you're getting up and just putting out fires all day and dealing with lawsuits, you're going to get miserable. So you got to find the things that bring you joy in the business and focus on those, and frankly, build cushions around yourself that you don't have to deal with the shit you don't like.
Erik, I want to thank you for the time. This has been a great conversation, and love your insights. And again, congratulations on all the growth you've seen. Seems like you've done it a number of times now with different business models, and so you're onto something. If you found this episode valuable, please subscribe below and make sure to share it with any friends and colleagues.